It doesn't completely satiate the hunger or rather thirst. But it keeps us strong enough to resist. Most of the time. My voice got lower. I was ashamed of danger I had allowed her to be in. Danger I continued to allow. Sometimes it's more difficult than others. Is it very difficult for you now? 2008 Stephanie Meyer. I sighed. Of course she would ask the question I didn't want to answer. Yes, I admitted. I expected her physical response correctly this time. Her breathing held steady, her heart kept its even pattern. I expected it, but I did not understand it. How could she not be afraid? But you're not hungry now, she declared, perfectly sure of herself. Why do you think that? Your eyes. She said, her tone offhand. I told you I had a theory. I've noticed that men in particular are crabbier when they hungry. I chuckled at her description, crabby. There was an understatement. But she was dead right, as usual. You are observant, aren't you? I laughed again. She smiled a little, the crease returning between her eyes as if she were concentrating on something. Were you hunting this weekend, with Emmett? She asked after my laugh had faded. The casual way she spoke was as fascinating as it was frustrating. Could she really accept so much in stride? I was closer to shock than she seemed to be. Yes, I told her, and then, as I was about to leave it at that, I felt the same urge I had in the restaurant. I wanted her to know me. I didn't want to leave. I went on slowly. But it was necessary. It's a bit easier to be around you when I am not thirsty. Why didn't you want to leave? I took a deep breath, and then turned to meet her gaze. This kind of honesty was difficult in a very different way. It makes me anxious. I supposed that word would suffice, though it wasn't strong enough. To be away from you. I wasn't joking when I asked you to try not to fall in the ocean or get run over last Thursday. I was distracted all weekend, worrying about you. And after what happened tonight, I am surprised that you did make it through a whole weekend unscathed. Then I remembered the scrapes on her palms. Well, not totally unscathed. I amended. What, your hands? I reminded her. She sighed and grimaced. I felt. 2008 Stephanie Meyer. 205. 206. I'd guessed right. That's what I thought. I said, unable to contain my smile. I suppose, being you, it could have been much worse, and that possibility tormented me the entire time I was away. It was a very long 3 days. I really got on Emmett's nerves. Honestly, that didn't belong in the past tense. I was probably still irritating Emmett, and all the rest of my family, too. Except Alice. 3 days. She asked, her voice suddenly sharp. Didn't you just get back today? I didn't understand the edge in her voice. No, we got back Sunday. Then why weren't any of you in school? She demanded. Her irritation confused me. She didn't seem to realize that this question was one that related to mythology again. Well, you asked if the sun hurt me, and it doesn't. I said. But I can't go out in the sunlight, at least. Not where anyone can see. That distracted her from her mysterious annoyance. Why? She asked, leaning her head to one side. I doubted I could come up with the appropriate analogy to explain this one. So I just told her. I'll show you sometime. And then I wondered if this was a promise I would end up breaking. Would I see her again, after tonight? Did I love her enough yet to be able to bear leaving her? You might have called me. She said. What an odd conclusion. But I knew you were safe, but I didn't know where you were. She came to an abrupt stop, and looked at her hands. What? I didn't like it. She said shyly, the skin over her cheekbones warming. Not seeing you. It makes me anxious, too. Are you happy now? I demanded of myself. Well, here was my reward for hoping. I was bewildered, elated, horrified, mostly horrified to realize that all my wildest imaginings were not so far off the mark. This was why it didn't matter to her that I was a monster. It was exactly the same reason that the rules no longer mattered to me. 2008 Stephanie Meyer. Why right and wrong were no longer compelling influences. Why all my priorities had shifted one rung down to make room for this girl at the very top. Bella cared for me, too. I knew it could be nothing in comparison to how I loved her. But it was enough for her to risk her life to sit here with me. To do so gladly. Enough to cause her pain if I did the right thing and left her. Was there anything I could do now that would not hurt her? Anything at all. I should have stayed away. I should never have come back to Forks. I would cause her nothing but pain. Would that stop me from staying now? From making it worse? The way I felt right now, feeling her warmth against my skin. No, nothing would stop me. Ah, I groaned to myself. This is wrong. What did I say? She asked, quick to take the blame on herself. Don't you see, Bella? It's one thing for me to make myself miserable, but a wholly other thing for you to be so involved. I don't want to hear that you feel that way. It was the truth, it was a lie. The most selfish part of me was flying with the knowledge that she wanted me as I wanted her. It's wrong. It's not safe. I am dangerous. Bella, please, grasp that. No, her lips pouted out petulantly. I am serious. I was battling with myself so strongly, half desperate for her to accept, half desperate to keep the warnings from escaping, that the words came through my teeth as a growl. So am I, she insisted. I told you, it doesn't matter what you are. It's too late, too late. The world was bleakly black and white for one endless second as I watched the shadows crawl across the sunny lawn toward Bella's sleeping form in my memory. Inevitable, unstoppable. They stole the color from her skin, and plunged her into darkness. Too late. Alice's vision swirled in my head. Bella's blood-red eyes staring back at me impassively. Expressionless, but there was no way that she could not hate me for that future. Hate me for stealing everything from her. Stealing her life and her soul. 2008 Stephanie Meyer. 207. 208. It could not be too late. Never say that. I hissed. She stared out her window, and her teeth bit into her lip again. Her hands were balled into tight fists in her lap. Her breathing hitched and broke. What are you thinking? I had to know. She shook her head without looking at me. I saw something glisten, like a crystal, on her cheek. Agony, are you crying? ID made her cry. ID hurt her that much. She scrubbed the tears away with the back of her hand. No, she lied, her voice breaking. Some long-buried instinct had me reaching out toward her. In that 1 second I felt more human than I ever had. And then I remembered that I was not. And I lowered my hand. I am sorry. I said, my jaw locked. How could I ever tell her how sorry I was? Sorry for all the stupid mistakes ID made. Sorry for my never-ending selfishness. Sorry that she was so unfortunate as to have inspired this first tragic love of mine. Sorry also for the things beyond my control, that I'd been the monster chosen by fate to end her life in the first place. I took a deep breath, ignoring my wretched reaction to the flavor in the car, and tried to collect myself. I wanted to change the subject, to think of something else. Lucky for me, my curiosity about the girl was insatiable. I always had a question. Tell me something. I said. Yes, she asked huskily, tears still in her voice. What were you thinking tonight? Just before I came around the corner. I didn't understand your expression. You didn't look that scared. You looked like you were concentrating very hard on something. I remembered her face, forcing myself to forget whose eyes I was looking through, the look of determination there. I was trying to remember how to incapacitate an attacker. She said, her voice more composed. You know, self-defense. I was going to smash his nose into his brain. Her composure did not last to the end of her explanation. Her tone twisted until it. 2008 Stephanie Meyer seethed with hate. This was no hyperbole, and her kittenish fury was not humorous now. I could see her frail figure, just silk over glass, overshadowed by the meaty, heavy-fisted human monsters who would have hurt her. The fury boiled in the back of my head. You were going to fight them. I wanted to groan. Her instincts were deadly to herself. Didn't you think about running? I fall down a lot when I run. She said sheepishly. What about screaming for help? I was getting to that part. I shook my head in disbelief. How had she managed to stay alive before she'd come to Forks? You were right. I told her, a sour edge to my voice. I am definitely fighting fate, trying to keep you alive. She sighed, and glanced out the window. Then she looked back at me. Will I see you tomorrow? She demanded abruptly. As long as I was on my way to hell, I might as well enjoy the journey. Yes, I have a paper due, too. I smiled at her, and it felt good to do this. I'll save you a seat at lunch. Her heart fluttered, my dead heart suddenly felt warmer. I stopped the car in front of her father's house. She made no move to leave me. Do you promise to be there tomorrow? She insisted. I promise. How could doing the wrong thing give me so much happiness? Surely there was something amiss in that. She nodded to herself, satisfied, and started to remove my jacket. You can keep it, I assured her quickly. I rather wanted to leave her with something of myself. A token, like the bottle cap that was in my pocket now. You don't have a jacket for tomorrow. She handed it back to me, smiling ruefully. I don't want to have to explain to Charlie, she told me. I would imagine not. I smiled at her. Oh, right. 2008 Stephanie Meyer. 209. 210. She put her hand on the door handle, and then stopped. Unwilling to leave, just as I was unwilling for her to go. To have her unprotected, even for a few moments. Peter and Charlotte were well on their way by now, long past Seattle, no doubt. But there were always others. This world was not a safe place for any human, and for her it seemed to be more dangerous than it was for the rest. Bella, I asked, surprised at the pleasure there was in simply speaking her name. Yes, will you promise me something? Yes, she agreed easily, and then her eyes tightened as if she'd thought of a reason to object. Don't go into the woods alone. I warned her, wondering if this request would trigger the objection in her eyes. She blinked, startled. Why? I glowered into the untrustworthy darkness. The lack of light was no problem for my eyes, but neither would it trouble another hunter. It only blinded humans. I am not always the most dangerous thing out there. I told her. Let us leave it at that. She shivered, but recovered quickly and was even smiling when she told me. Whatever you say. Her breath touched my face. So sweet and fragrant. I could stay here all night like this, but she needed her sleep. The two desires seemed equally strong as they continually warred inside me, wanting her versus wanting her to be safe. I sighed at the impossibilities. I'll see you tomorrow. I said, knowing that I would see her much sooner than that. She wouldn't see me until tomorrow, though. Tomorrow, then. She agreed as she opened her door. Agony again, watching her leave. I leaned after her, wanting to hold her here. Bella, she turned, and then froze, surprised to find our faces so close together. 2008 Stephanie Meyer. I, too, was overwhelmed by the proximity. The heat rolled off her in waves, caressing my face. I could all but feel the silk of her skin. Her heartbeat stuttered, and her lips fell open. Sleep well. I whispered, and leaned away before the urgency in my body, either the familiar thirst or the very new and strange hunger I suddenly felt, could make me do something that might hurt her. She sat there motionless for a moment, her eyes wide and stunned. Dazzled. I guessed. As was I. She recovered, though her face was still a bit bemused, and half fell out of the car. Tripping over her feet and having to catch the frame of the car to right herself. I chuckled hopefully it was too quiet for her to hear. I watched her stumble her way up to the pool of light that surrounded the front door. Safe for the moment. And I would be back soon to make sure. I could feel her eyes follow me as I drove down the dark street. Such a different sensation than I was accustomed to. Usually, I could simply watch myself through someone's following eyes, were I of a mind to. This was strangely exciting, this intangible sensation of watching eyes. I knew it was just because they were her eyes. A million thoughts chased each other through my head as I drove aimlessly into the night. For a long time I circled through the streets, going nowhere, thinking of Bella and the incredible release of having the truth known. No longer did I have to dread that she would find out what I was. She knew. It didn't matter to her. Even though this was obviously a bad thing for her, it was amazingly liberating for me. More than that. I thought of Bella and requited love. She didn't love me the way I loved her, such an overpowering, all-consuming, crushing love would probably break her fragile body. But she felt strongly enough. Enough to subdue the instinctive fear. Enough to want to be with me. And being with her was the greatest happiness I had ever known. For a while, as I was all alone and hurting no one else, for a change I allowed myself to feel that happiness without dwelling on the tragedy. Just to be happy that she. 2008 Stephanie Meyer. 211. 212, cared for me. Just to exult in the triumph of winning her affection. Just to imagine day after day of sitting close to her, hearing her voice and earning her smiles. I replayed that smile in my head, seeing her full lips pull up at the corners, the hint of a dimple that touched her pointed chin, the way her eyes warmed and melted. Her fingers had felt so warm and soft on my hand tonight. I imagined how it would feel to touch the delicate skin that stretched over her cheekbones, silky, warm. So fragile. Silk over glass. Frighteningly breakable. I didn't see where my thoughts were leading until it was too late. As I dwelt on that devastating vulnerability, new images of her face intruded on my fantasies. Lost in the shadows, pale with fear yet her jaw tight and determined, her eyes fierce, full of concentration, her slim body braced to strike at the hulking forms that gathered around her, nightmares in the gloom. Ah, I groaned as the simmering hate that I'd all but forgotten in the joy of loving her burst again into an inferno of rage. I was alone. Bella was. I trusted, safe inside her home. For a moment I was fiercely glad that Charlie Swan, head of the local law enforcement, trained and armed, was her father. That ought to mean something, provide some shelter for her. She was safe. It would not take me so very long to avenge the insult. No. She deserved better. I could not allow her to care for a murderer. But, what about the others? Bella was safe, yes. Angela and Jessica were also, surely, safe in their beds. Yet a monster was loose in the streets of Port Angeles. A human monster did that make him the human's problem. To commit the murder I ached to commit was wrong. I knew that. But leaving him free to attack again could not be the right thing either. The blonde hostess from the restaurant. The waitress I'd never really looked at. Both had irritated me in a trivial way, but that did not mean they deserved to be in danger. Either one of them might be somebody's Bella. That realization decided me. 2008 Stephanie Meyer. I turned the car north, accelerating now that I had a purpose. Whenever I had a problem that was beyond me, something tangible like this, I knew where I could go for help. Alice was sitting on the porch, waiting for me. I pulled to a stop in front of the house rather than going around to the garage. Carlyle's in his study. Alice told me before I could ask. Thank you, I said, tousling her hair as I passed. Thank you for returning my call, she thought sarcastically. Oh, I paused by the door, pulling out my phone and flipping it open. Sorry. I didn't even check to see who it was. I was busy, yeah. I know. I am sorry, too. By the time I saw what was going to happen, you were on your way. It was close. I murmured. Sorry, she repeated, ashamed of herself. It was easy to be generous, knowing that Bella was fine. Dawn TB. I know you can catch everything. No one expects you to be omniscient. Alice, thanks, I almost asked you out to dinner tonight. Did you catch that before I changed my mind? She grinned. No, I missed that one, too. Wish I'd known. I would have come. What were you concentrating on, that you missed so much? Jasper's thinking about our anniversary. She laughed. He's trying not to make a decision on my gift, but I think I have a pretty good idea. You shameless, yep. She pursed her lips, and stared up at me, a hint of accusation in her expression. I paid better attention later. Are you going to tell them that she knows? I sighed. Yes. Later, I won't say anything. Do me a favor and tell Rosalie when I am not around, okay? I flinched. Sure, Bella took it pretty well. 2008 Stephanie Meyer. 213. 214, too well, Alice grinned at me. Don't underestimate Bella. I tried to block the image I didn't want to see Bella and Alice, best of friends. Impatient now. I sighed heavily. I wanted to be through with the next part of the evening. I wanted it over with. But I was a little worried to leave Forks. Alice, I began. She saw what I was planning to ask. She'll be fine tonight. I am keeping a better watch now. She sort of needs 24-hour supervision. Doesn't she? At least, anyway, you'll be with her soon enough. I took a deep breath. The words were beautiful to me. Go on, get this done so you can be where you want to be. She told me. I nodded, and hurried up to Carlyle's room. He was waiting for me, his eyes on the door rather than the thick book on his desk. I heard Alice tell you where to find me, he said, and smiled. It was a relief to be with him, to see the empathy and deep intelligence in his eyes. Carlyle would know what to do. I need help, anything. Edward, he promised. Did Alice tell you what happened to Bella tonight? Almost happened, he amended. Yes, almost. I've got a dilemma. Carlyle. You see. I want very much to kill him. The words started to flow fast and passionate. So much. But I know that would be wrong, because it would be vengeance. Not justice. All anger, no impartiality. Still, it can be right to leave a serial rapist and killer wandering Port Angeles. I don't know the humans there, but I can let someone else take Bella's place as his victim. Those other women, someone might feel about them the way I feel about Bella. Might suffer what I would have suffered if she'd been harmed. It's not right. His wide, unexpected smile stopped the rush of my words cold. 2008 Stephanie Meyer. She's very good for you, isn't she? So much compassion, so much control. I am impressed. I am not looking for compliments. Carlyle, of course not. But I can help my thoughts, can I? He smiled again. I'll take care of it. You can rest easy. No one else will be harmed in Bella's place. I saw the plan in his head. It wasn't exactly what I wanted, it did not satisfy my craving for brutality, but I could see that it was the right thing. I'll show you where to find him. I said. Let us go. He grabbed his black bag on the way. I would have preferred a more aggressive form of sedation like a cracked skull, but I would let Carlyle do this his way. We took my car. Alice was still on the steps. She grinned and waved as we drove away. I saw that she had looked ahead for me. We would have no difficulties. The trip was very short on the dark, empty road. I left off my headlights to keep from attracting attention. It made me smile to think how Bella would have reacted to this pace. I'd already been driving slower than usual to prolong my time with her when she objected. Carlyle was thinking of Bella, too. I didn't foresee that she would be so good for him. That's unexpected. Perhaps this was somehow meant to be. Perhaps it serves a higher purpose. Only, he pictured Bella with snow-cold skin and blood-red eyes, and then flinched away from the image. Yes, only. Indeed. Because how could there be any good in destroying something so pure and lovely? I glowered into the night, all the joy of the evening destroyed by his thoughts. Edward deserves happiness. He owed it. The fierceness of Carlyle's thoughts surprised me. There must be a way. I wished I could believe that either one. But there was no higher purpose to what was happening to Bella. Just a vicious harpy, an ugly, bitter fate who could not bear for Bella to have the life she deserved. 2008 Stephanie Meyer. 215. 216. I did not linger in Port Angeles. I took Carlyle to the dive where the creature named Lonnie was drowning his disappointment with his friends, two of whom had already passed out. Carlyle could see how hard it was for me to be so close, for me to hear the monster's thoughts and see his memories of Bella mixed in with less fortunate girls who no one could save now. My breathing sped. I clenched the steering wheel. Go, Edward, he told me gently. I'll make the rest of them safe. You go back to Bella. It was exactly the right thing to say. Her name was the only distraction that could mean anything to me now. I left him in the car, and ran back to Forks in a straight line through the sleeping forest. It took less time than the first journey in the speeding car. It was just minutes later that I scaled the side of her house and slid her window out of my way. I sighed silently with relief. Everything was just as it should be. Bella was safe in her bed, dreaming, her wet hair tangled like seaweed across the pillow. But, unlike most nights, she was curled into a small ball with the covers stretched taut around her shoulders. Cold. I guessed. Before I could settle into my usual seat, she shivered in her sleep, and her lips trembled. I thought for a brief moment, and then I eased out into the hallway, exploring another part of her house for the first time. Charlie's snores were loud and even. I could almost catch the edge of his dream. Something with the rush of water and patient expectation. Fishing, maybe. There, at the top of the stairs, was a promising-looking cupboard. I opened it hopefully, and found what I was looking for. I selected the thickest blanket from the tiny linen closet, and took it back into her room. I would return it before she woke, and no one would be the wiser. Holding my breath, I cautiously spread the blanket over her. She didn't react to the added weight. I returned to the rocking chair. While I waited anxiously for her to warm up, I thought of Carlyle, wondering where he was now. I knew his plan would go smoothly. Alice had seen that. 2008 Stephanie Meyer. Thinking of my father made me sigh. Carlyle gave me too much credit. I wished I was the person he thought me to be. That person. The one who deserved happiness, might hope to be worthy of this sleeping girl. How different things would be if I could be that Edward. As I pondered this, a strange, uncalled image filled my head. For one moment, the hag-faced fate I'd imagined, the one who sought Bella's destruction, was replaced by the most foolish and reckless of angels. A guardian angel, something Carlyle's version of me might have had. With a heedless smile on her lips, her sky-colored eyes full of mischief, the angel formed Bella in such a fashion that there was no way that I could possibly overlook her. A ridiculously potent scent to demand my attention, a silent mind to inflame my curiosity, a quiet beauty to hold my eyes, a selfless soul to earn my awe. Leave out the natural sense of self-preservation so that Bella could bear to be near me and, finally, add a wide streak of appallingly bad luck. With a careless laugh, the irresponsible angel propelled her fragile creation directly into my path, trusting blithely in my flawed morality to keep Bella alive. In this vision, I was not Bella's sentence, she was my reward. I shook my head at the fantasy of the unthinking angel. She was not much better than the harpy. I could not think well of a higher power that would behave in such a dangerous and stupid manner. At least the ugly fate I could fight against. And I had no angel. They were reserved for the good for people like Bella. So where was her angel through all this? Who was watching over her? I laughed silently, startled, as I realized that, just now, I was filling that role. A vampire angel. There was a stretch. After about a half hour, Bella relaxed out of the tight ball. Her breathing got deeper and she started to murmur. I smiled, satisfied. It was a small thing, but at least she was sleeping more comfortably tonight because I was here. Edward, she sighed, and she smiled, too. I shoved tragedy aside for the moment, and let myself be happy again. 2008 Stephanie Meyer. 217. 218. 11. Interrogations. CNN broke the story first. I was glad it hit the news before I had to leave for school, anxious to hear how the humans would phrase the account, and what amount of attention it would garner. Luckily, it was a heavy news day. There was an earthquake in South America and a political kidnapping in the Middle East. So it ended up only earning a few seconds, a few sentences, and one grainy picture. Alonzo Calderas Wallace, suspected serial rapist and murderer wanted in the states of Texas and Oklahoma, was apprehended last night in Portland, Oregon thanks to an anonymous tip. Wallace was found unconscious in an alley early this morning, just a few yards from a police station. Officials are unable to tell us at this time whether he will be extradited to Houston or Oklahoma City to stand trial. The picture was unclear, a mug shot, and he had a thick beard at the time of the photograph. Even if Bella saw it, she would probably not recognize him. I hoped she wouldn't. It would make her afraid needlessly. The coverage here in town will be light. It's too far away to be considered of local interest. Alice told me. It was a good call to have Carlyle take him out of state, I nodded. Bella didn't watch much TV regardless, and I'd never seen her father watching anything besides sports channels. I'd done what I could. This monster no longer hunted, and I was not a murderer. Not recently, anyway. I'd been right to trust Carlyle, as much as I still wished the monster had not gotten off quite so easily. I caught myself hoping he would be extradited to Texas, where the death penalty was so popular. No, that didn't matter. I would put this behind me, and concentrate on what was most important. I'd left Bella's room less than an hour ago. I was already aching to see her again. Alice, do you mind? She cut me off. Rosalie will drive. She'll act pissed, but you know she'll enjoy the excuse to show off her car. Alice trilled a laugh. 2008 Stephanie Meyer. I grinned at her. See you at school, Alice sighed, and my grin became a grimace. I know, she thought. Not yet. I'll wait until you ready for Bella to know me. You should know, though. This isn't just me being selfish. Bella's going to like me, too. I didn't answer her as I hurried out the door. That was a different way of viewing the situation. Would Bella want to know Alice? To have a vampire for a girlfriend. Knowing Bella. That idea probably wouldn't bother her in the slightest. I frowned to myself. What Bella wanted and what was best for Bella were two very separate things. I started to feel uneasy as I parked my car in Bella's driveway. The human adage said that things looked different in the morning, that things changed when you slept on them. Would I look different to Bella in the weak light of a foggy day? More sinister or less sinister than I had in the blackness of night? Had the truth sunk in while she slept? Would she finally be afraid? Her dreams had been peaceful. Though, last night, when she spoke my name, time and time again, she smiled. More than once she murmured a plea for me to stay. Would that mean nothing today? I waited nervously, listening to the sounds of her inside the house, the fast, stumbling footsteps on the stairs, the sharp rip of a foil wrapper, the contents of the refrigerator crashing against each other when the door slammed. It sounded like she was in a hurry, anxious to get to school. The thought made me smile, hopeful again. I looked at the clock. I supposed that taking in account the velocity her decrepit truck must limit her to, she was running a little late. Bella rushed out of the house, her book bag sliding off her shoulder, her hair coiled into a messy twist that was already coming apart on the nape of her neck. The thick green sweater she wore was not enough to keep her thin shoulders from hunching against the cold fog. The long sweater was too big for her, unflattering. It masked her slender figure, turning all her delicate curves and soft lines into a shapeless jumble. I appreciated this almost as much as I wished that she had worn something more like the soft blue blouse. 2008 Stephanie Meyer. 219. 220, she worn last night. The fabric had clung to her skin in such an appealing way.